As far as Keon goes, I thought he had an up and down first season. I really do. And I mentioned that after the year. I thought he got off to a start that he built momentum through, and then he got injured. And then from there on, it was rather rocky, I would say. We're looking for him to learn from those moments of adversity and come back and have a really, really strong offseason and get himself going into the start of season 2 here.
So that's Sean McDermott on Keon Coleman, something we heard from the Bills at the end of season presser. Rocky is how McDermott described Coleman's season. Mm-hmm. Then he's asked a follow-up question about how Coleman would respond to this kind of being challenged to be better, grow up, mature. He's a young kid. He's a rookie. A lot of this is, to a point, to be expected in some cases. And he spoke for a while on this, so there's going to be a little bit of a lengthy cut. But McDermott's asked how Coleman would respond to that challenge.
I mean, he's a good young man that, just as most young players, don't always know what they don't know about the league and how hard this league is. And so it's more constructive style conversation and topics with how we can move forward together and what you have to do, the process between now and the start of the offseason program in March and April. So that's really what it's about. And until you've gone through it, you haven't gone through it. And so just trying to build awareness of what you need to do. And there's a lot of people who come in and have a good first year, and then another rookie at the same position doesn't have the same level of success. And then what you find, and it's kind of human nature, is the person who had great success that first season kind of relaxes a little bit and downshifts, thinking that they understand how this league works. And it's actually the player that didn't play much in the first year comes and has a better second year than the first player does. And it's just a weird dynamic to me, but it really makes sense when you think about it. Like, you have to stay urgent. You have to stay on the gas, or this league will eat you up, whether you're a player or coach, whatever it is. And that takes a certain type of person with a certain drive and determination and fire in their heart. And it's going to be Keon's turn to show that he has that this offseason.
It's a veteran coach talking about this is not an easy league. And that makes sense. It's a long answer.
It sounds like, he's talking about a kid.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. He's a kid. I mean,
he is.
He's super young. Some rookies are older than others. These guys can be anything from like 21 to 26 sometimes.
Yeah.
And Coleman is young. To me, Joe, this is the million-dollar question about the offseason. And give a thought on this if you want to, 803-0550. Or ask a different question. Like, what's your million-dollar question? My million-dollar question for the Bills this offseason is, are you treating Coleman as a bankable asset for next year? Mm-hmm. Or are you treating him as, hey, we hope that goes somewhere, but we shouldn't count on it? He also referred to Cole. He said about Cole Bishop that he's in the mix next year and has a chance to start, but nothing's guaranteed.
Yep.
And that's, you and I have talked about safety, whether or not they could pursue help at safety. Bishop might be in a similar boat about, hey, we drafted this kid. There's a lot of things we like about him, but I want to put everything in the through the prism or whatever, of a Josh Allen prime year. Am I going into a Josh Allen prime year counting on Keon Coleman to do the things I need him to do? Or am I going to form a backup plan or a side plan, and if Coleman does those things, well, then I'm in great shape.
Well, the way they talked, the way he talked, aren't they certainly coming in with something of a backup plan, something of a plan B of, hey, we want him to mature. If he doesn't, we need to be ready. And but then that gets to how much do you want to be ready?
Right.
How strong of a competition do you want for him? Same thing with Bishop, too. Do you want, for Bishop, do you want a Javon Holland? Because that's no longer a chance to start. Like, you're just not starting anymore. Or do you want another Mike Edwards? Or another DeMar Hamlin, just with a different name? Like, that's your competition. For Coleman, is Mac Hollins your competition? Or am I going to go get, again, receiver, Hollywood Brown? Although he doesn't, roll a little bit different. But those are snaps on the outside. That's a veteran receiver. Coleman, despite not being a speed guy, this is maybe where they're confused about part of what his game can be in the league long term. What are the plays? The go routes, right? They're throwing the ball down the field to Keon Coleman. So, all right, this guy, he's smaller than you. He's not going to win balls the same way you are. But those routes that you're running, yeah, he's here to take those from you if you're not going to live up to your expectation here. If you're not going to mature a little bit, if your game isn't going to mature. I would be stunned the way they're talking about Coleman if he was just on the depth chart with nothing else really behind him going into the season. Like, they're going to do something.
Yeah, probably. Whether that's Cooper or, Hollins will be back. I would imagine Hollins will be back. You just can't go into it hoping, hey, Kincaid and Coleman will just be better. Well, I don't know about that.
Right.
Easy. Careful just hoping everybody turns out to be a little bit better. It's a model that, sometimes works. But that's the other part about this. What are the options out there? Josh Palmer. I saw Joe Marino, Locked On Bills podcast, laying out a couple different ideas. Like guys to bring in, Diami Brown and Josh Palmer. Both decent names, guys that have had lower roles.
Those are downfield guys, though, too. Diami Brown especially.
Yep.
And ran a lot of downfield stuff.
He's been an explosive guy. He's kind of popped for the Commanders late this year, and there's plenty to like there. And again, the Bills might still dip into the well of let's get some guys we think can be good, and Josh Allen will elevate their game, which he does for everybody he plays with. So it's definitely not ideal. You don't want to get to this point and be talking about your rookie receiver this way, that he's got to figure out what the league is about. And again, one thing that makes this different than other scenarios, it might be true of every single rookie receiver. It might be true of Worthy, and it might be true of Malik Neighbors, that Brian Dable and Joe Shane had this conversation with Neighbors in his exit meeting. The difference is, and this is where whenever a coach or a GM speaks publicly, they're telling all of us this. It's something they could just tell Coleman, but they're telling all of us this, and that is a choice. It's a choice to say it out loud. You could just say, had a good year, excited to see him in year number 2. To go in multiple times, both Bean and McDermott in public, to me says that behind the scenes, it's a lot louder, and these conversations were had consistently with Coleman.
Kind of put him on alert a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're not just getting handed this starting job. Like, you gotta go do it. You gotta go. He did. What's interesting about that, though, is if that was happening all the way through, and this is where I might wonder what they do around him, because they traded for Cooper, right? But Coleman's snap counts never really, went away, except in the AFC Championship game. And maybe you want to say that is meaningful. That the biggest game of the year, all right, that's when he played the least.
How many snaps?
He played in that game 39, which was 53%. He had not dipped below 60 in any other game of the year except for the Jaguar game that he was suspended the first quarter. So if you take out the game where he was suspended for a quarter, the AFC Championship was the least amount that he played all year. By 8% or more, by 7-8 snaps, and that's only compared to the other playoff games. Like the regular season games, he was playing 90% against the Jets, 66% against New England, 79% against Miami, 83%. Like the numbers, especially before the injury, are like all 75% and above. And then, all right, small dip, he comes back from injury, and then, he's only playing half in your biggest game of the year. Cooper playing a little bit. Samuel was back healthy. So maybe you could read into that a little bit and say they were lacking trust in him, at least compared to what they were beginning of the season. But now what's the plan B? Like I'm going to be thinking a lot more about that now.
Yeah.
What is their plan B to Keon Coleman?
Mac Hollins.
He's like
I know, but Hollins did have a bigger role with the Raiders and a bigger role with the Dolphins too.
Definitely
just
the Raiders. Definitely the Raiders.
You'd wonder if the Bills might look at what happened last year and say, should we bring back Mac and elevate his role a little bit?
Man,
he didn't let you down too much. He was reliable. He's super popular. You like his energy, but can he get open? Can he separate? That's tough.
He doesn't really do that for me, right?
He makes tough catches. He blocks.
He made a couple. I'm looking right now. I was looking this up for Coleman because I know Coleman had a bad year in his contested catch percentage. Like, out of 89 qualifying receivers, he was 80th in the league. He was behind Tank Dell. Tank Dell caught a higher percentage of his contested balls than Coleman did. And who's sitting there 2 spots below Coleman? It was Mac Hollins.
Yeah.
Two of the worst 10 in the league. Between the two of them, 26 contested targets. They caught 6. Like, those are the things that those dudes you think would be better at, right? Because they're not getting open on a regular basis. So I'm not saying Hollins can't be here and that there isn't value in him being here. But I personally would like to see them do a lot better than him. As like, okay, I need somebody to play on offense. I need somebody to be a target for Allen regularly because Coleman just still isn't getting it. I'm going to want to see them have an option that's better than that, personally.
803-0550. John writes in, comments on the chat, hoping everyone takes a step forward and getting better that way is how the Sabres have operated for the last decade. And that's not wrong. And it doesn't have to be wrong for the Bills. I mean, can Coleman take a step forward? Definitely.
Yeah.
Can Kincaid? Definitely. A lot of players can.
Who's more likely?
Coleman or Kincaid?
Who's more likely to take to take the step they want?
You asked me the other day, and I said Kincaid. I think Coleman is going to be what he is in the NFL, and that's a productive outside big bully guy, but it's a role. Kincaid can probably be more versatile. But
yeah,
to the overall point, just hoping everybody gets better. I want to keep looking at everything through a Josh Allen prime year. It's a Josh Allen prime year. He just did put together an amazing season with receivers that everybody in the league would say that's how he got the MVP. It's because no one thought his receivers were all that good. And some of them are pretty good. I just don't want to go into this year thinking, sitting there at training camp, all right, well, Coleman's going to improve. Okay, I don't know that that'll be enough.